And we are live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with the final breakdown of the week. It is the LFA 139 breakdown show with my LFA cohort, as always, Lucky Locks. How you doing, Lucky Locks?
I'm doing well. I feel like every single week we do this, I'm saying like, yeah, we got a really good card, but like we do again. I'm not saying it just to say it. These are good fights on these card, competitive matchups, and I'm looking forward to talking about it and looking forward to watching on Friday night too. So yeah, let's get into her.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that I think LFA is my favorite fight organization in 2022. Honestly, like week in, week out, I'm not asking a lot of what is going on with their cards. I mean, we have UFC 278 this weekend. The first two cards on the main card of the pay-per-view now. Let me read those off. Harry Hunsucker versus Tyson Pedro at a catch weight of 210 or 220 when Harry Hunsucker doesn't make weight. And then Yanan Wu versus the return of Lucy Pudilova. I believe she was at one point referred to as like the Croatian Nick Diaz or something. Nate Diaz wasn't like she was called like a female Diaz, basically how she fought by like I think Jimmy Smith or something back in the day when he worked like on Fuel or something. But those are the first two of a 74.99 main card. While I honestly think the LFA top to bottom, the first fight of the night that we're going to be talking about with Budka and Poag is fantastic. We're going to get a real prospect out of that fight for sure. And it's just, yeah, I've also been having much better luck with the bets in the LFA so far this year too. This is the week of the 0-5 Contender Series. I will not hide from the fact that was my 0-5. I'll own it. One bad decision and then 4 bad reads. It happens. But we move on. Beautiful thing about watching more than one organization is there's more than one card this weekend. As I said a second ago, Liddell Poag and Dylan Budka, one of my favorite fights on the card, if not my favorite fight on the card. I think these two middleweights are legit prospects. I think they're going to kind of expose each other's weaknesses in a lot of ways. So should be a really interesting matchup. Dylan Budka, been watching him since his debut. Still only 22 years old, known as the Mindless Hulk, but definitely pretty intelligent. Actually, a pretty intelligent nickname because he's not mindless at all, even though he kind of just looks like he'd be a meathead. He's pretty smart about where he takes the fight and how he kind of exposes his opponent's weaknesses. Learned a lot from his debut against a guy who I'm a bigger fan of than most people, David Gladfelter. I think that was a really, valuable loss to start out your career. There's plenty of really great guys who started out 0-1, and Dylan could be another one of those guys. He did have the amateur experience as well, but as a pro, he's 3-1. 2 straight finishes since that decision win after his loss by rear naked choke at the end of the 3rd round. He was doing really well against David Gladfelter before that. And again, David Gladfelter, pretty big guy and a good learning experience. That was at the beginning of 2022. I can't believe that was in January. It feels like it was a lot longer ago. But yeah, anyways, 3 straight wins since then, 3 of them with B2 Fighting Series, which is a decent organization, but obviously facing a pretty low level of competition there, putting away a 2-10 Jet Jones in 9 seconds. But the T. Cummins fight with LFA, very, very impressive. T. Cummins, a big, impressive kickboxer for the most part. And yeah, Budka just, he kept on the grappling, kept on the pressure, and seemed to keep a good pace and good, until getting that finish with the rear naked choke. So 1 KO, 1 submission. Liddell Poag, 24 years old, 6'3", 79.5-inch reach. So really impressive frame there. Definitely going to need that. Use that reach, Jackson Winklejohn, which kind of, it's hard to know what that really means at this point, but could be part of a kind of a new batch of Jackson Winklejohn here at 24 years old. 2 straight wins over guys with no fights on the record, but both of them impressive finishes with CFFC. Elbow finish in the first round and punches in the first round. So I do think he gets tested much more and pushed in this fight. We just haven't seen him against a level of wrestler like Dylan. And I just think Dylan's going to put that pressure on, eliminate that reach, and kind of with the frame Poag has, I kind of question it if he's going to be able to use that to keep this fight where he needs it. I just think Dylan kind of grinds, wears him down, either for maybe a ground and pound finish, but I think most likely a decision. But I like Dylan here, and looking at the odds now, I see he's a slight underdog. I will definitely be considering betting that. But both these guys very young, 22, 24. So I think both these guys are legit.
I was muted. Yeah, man, this is going to be a sweet fight. I knew probably both of us would have this as, one of our favorite ones on the card, just because I feel like, we would like both of these guys, right? So this is going to be a banger. We've got Poag. He's a 24-year-old prospect. He was a high school wrestling champion in Virginia. He's working at the Jackson Wink Academy now. He has 2 amateur fights, won both by finish, then turned pro, went to CFFC, finished 2 guys in the first round in pretty dominating fashion. Both of those guys were debutantes, but, really good wins for Poag nonetheless. And the second guy he fought, Dylan Weinmiller, is actually a pretty good fighter. He was 0-0 at the time, but he went on to win his next 2 fights by knockout. And I think he looked solid. And, as long as it lasted against Poag, and then looked very solid in his next 2 as well. So that win, I think, is aging pretty gracefully, because I do think that Weinmiller is a pretty good fighter, pretty good striker. And got a really large man in Poag here at 6'3", 79.5-inch reach, huge frame, and he has the wrestling and also has pretty decent striking. I like the way he uses the reach. I think that very long jab is good. That ground and pound when he gets down there is devastating. And coming up against another very strong wrestler, and Dylan Budka, right? I mean, this is a guy that wrestled in high school. I believe he started wrestling in high school, hadn't wrestled before that, just started there, and then got a full ride to wrestle at Notre Dame College. So obviously a very good wrestling pedigree there as well. Had a long amateur career, definitely got more experience at that level, had 9 fights, went 7-2, then lost his pro debut on Icon and lost to a pretty good fighter there. You brought it up. That wasn't really a terrible loss to have, first pro fight, learn a lesson there and come back stronger. And that's exactly what he did. He's won 3 straight now and finished his last 2. I picked him as an underdog last time out on LFA, as did you. And he choked out T. Cummins in the second round. This guy's a very, very physically strong guy. He's jacked. He's exciting to watch, and wasn't able to get T. Cummins down in the first round, was pressing him up against the cage a lot, kind of seemed a bit content to do that, but then was a lot more invested in getting it to the ground in the second round. Finally got him down about 2 minutes in, carried him right over to the corner and got to work, got to the back, got the rear naked choke. I really don't want to see either guy lose in this matchup. But I think the size and the length of Poag is not an ideal matchup for Budka, just because he already does have that wrestling background. I think that Poag's going to be first to the punch standing, and I think he's going to be able to neutralize some of that wrestling. So Poag minus 130, I like that spot. I mean, it's the last 2 fights that he had, he was over minus 1,000 in both of them, getting him at minus 130 here. Granted, against a much, much tougher opponent. Yeah. But I still like Poag here with the size, the wrestling, and also the striking.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And, probably one I'm more and more thinking I'm not going to be betting on either side, honestly, just because I do think that whichever side, wins this fight, I think it could be, really one-way traffic once it starts moving that way for him, as in Poag could get that finish. I could see it even in the first round, honestly, with how his striking's looked and everything. And then with Budka, I think that it was – the reason I brought up kind of the mindless Hulk thing, the high IQ, is I like that he wasn't going for that takedown in the first round. He was purposely wearing on him while not completely draining his own gas tank, allowing, for the second round, knowing. So, it will be interesting, this fight. I think we'll know a lot after the first minute. But, yeah, it's closely lined, slight underdog on Budka. I think that's how good he is, though. I think that it should be lined very closely. Poag, again, minus 1,000 in his first 2 fights, so definitely an interesting spot here. I understand both sides. Most likely, I'm just going to sit back and watch, but, we don't want to see either one of these guys lose, honestly. They're good. Next fight, definitely one I think that I have a lot to say about Charlie Boy here, Ryan Charlie Boy. After the last fight with Mr. Kurt Wright, he was looking really good, honestly. I liked the instincts he was showing to use his wrestling. It was one of the things that coming into that fight was a big concern of mine, was that he was just going to kind of stand and trade with Kurt Wright. And that's the way Kurt Wright wins fights, is standing, trading, turning into a brawl. He didn't. Kurt Wright turned his head, got a back of the head shot that got him out of there. Kurt Wright got the win. I think Ryan comes into this fight on fire. He already fights very kind of, high pace, very looking for the finish and everything, and kind of angry almost, but I think even more so here. He's going against a guy in Logan Urban who came back and got a no decision because of a questionable drug result of Josh Quinlan, which is Josh Quinlan's nickname at this point, but still takes the damage from a 45-second knockout. Before that was very inactive as well and facing not a great level of competition. I think Ryan Charlevoix is getting an absolute favor here by the LFA matchmakers of getting a 5-1 Logan Urban. So it's a nice record to get on your resume here. And he's going to be upset. He's showing that he's willing to use the wrestling. I think using the wrestling, going to the ground and pound is the route to go here. Possibly use the jiu-jitsu as well. But I like Ryan Charlevoix in this spot a lot, coming off of a loss that wasn't a loss. So that's the best kind of loss to me. I think he'll be focused, and I think he's hungry. And Logan Urban, I don't really know how good he is, but from what I've seen over the last 2 years or so of him, which isn't very much, I just am not very sold. So I think this is a great spot for Charlevoix. I think he rolls.
Yeah, Charlevoix coming in 3-1, and I mean the one is from the disqualification that you talked about in the last one, and I think that's a fight that he probably would have won. I mean, he looked really good. I guess we'll never know now. He did catch him with an illegal elbow. I felt like the disqualification was absolutely the wrong decision there. I thought no contest would have been much more appropriate. It did not seem like he intentionally targeted the back of the head. He was throwing elbows. Guy turned his head. Did he catch him in the back of the head? Yeah. Was it on purpose? No. I didn't like the decision to disqualify him there. And there's another fight on this card later where in the last fight there was a disqualification that I also didn't agree with. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Talk about that later. But anyway, back to this one. Charlevoix also was an amateur, 6-0, was very successful there, and started his career as a pro with 2 knockouts. Got off to a 3-0 start. Had a few fights scrapped before his last one against Jalen Fuller and Multibek Orobai. Those guys ended up fighting each other. I think that's probably in the best interest of Charlevoix that
for dodging 2 landmines.
Yeah. And then he has this last fight against Kurt Wright where he gets DQ'd, but he's a good striker. And I really, like you said, I really like the way he went to the wrestling there. That was clearly the best path, the path of least resistance in that fight. Working at an Elevation Fight Team as well. He's in a really good room. Coming up against Logan Urban, who also was a 6-0 amateur, started his pro career off 1-1, then won 4 straight. He's got 100% finish rate as a pro. Not really fighting at a high level, but he is doing what you want him to do against guys that we perceive to be kind of lower level. He's getting them out of there, right? Then gets a short notice call to Dana White's Contender Series. Josh Quinlan, chins him in 47 seconds. And, there was that drug test result. I'm not so sure that it would have gone differently otherwise, but still, it's always going to have that asterisk next to it. And it's been almost a year since that knockout. So I like that he did take the time off to kind of get back and collect himself a little bit. He's a physically strong fighter. I think he's actually pretty good at distance. I like the kicks, but I'm not super sold on the guy. He opened -225 here. The line flipped to favor Charlevoix pretty quickly. It looks like it's increasingly going in that direction. So if you do like Charlevoix, I'd probably get that in quickly. I agree with the line more or less now. I think it's kind of accurate. I'm not really looking to bet either one here, but I am going to lean towards Charlevoix to get this one down. I just feel like he's the more well-developed prospect at this point in their careers.
Yeah, I would have definitely taken him at some plus money. I think anything favored, I've got to kind of see it again. I've got to see how he responds to, this last loss. If he comes out really over emotional, Logan's shown to be a really good finisher. I think Logan, appears to be the stronger guy. I think that Charlevoix appears to be the guy who can kind of, keep the pace and draw the fight out more as it goes. So, and again, he needs to use the wrestling again and not go back to Jorge Gurgel syndrome, as I call it. So should be a good one, though, at 170. I'm excited about that one. Again, Niagara Falls, New York, in case I didn't say that at the beginning. So next fight is at bantamweight, and this is another one of the weird DQs that we were hinting at here in Arnold Jimenez taking on Tishay Guthro. Tishay Guthro. Interesting tape. Watched a lot of Tishay Guthro. I'll say this, he's pretty good, but I'm not overly blown away by Tishay Guthro. I'll be honest. I was expecting a little more with each fight for him to have a little more of the improvement and everything. And dogs might bark here for a second, but new dogs being brought in. But Either way, yeah. Arnold Jimenez, I'll start with here, 8-2, 28 years old out of Millennia MMA. And actually, let me have you boot it up here because they're about to go crazy. So let me actually, you can go ahead and talk about Jimenez, get however far, and I'll be right back. Sorry about that.
No problem. So we got Tisha Guthro and Arnold Jimenez bantamweight fight here. Guthro, he's a bit of a smaller bantamweight. He's at 5'4", but he is pretty compact and still looks good at the weight. 5-1 record. Was 8-1 as an amateur and then turned pro in 2019. He was able to win his first 2 fights inside the distance, so looked very good, at the beginning of his career. 2 good wins there, and then picked up 1 more to improve to 3-0, then punched his ticket to the LFA. So we saw him make his LFA debut. It was a short notice call-up, and he drew Justin Wetzel in that one. And Justin Wetzel is a guy who I'm pretty high on the regionals. I think he's a very good fighter. He has a win over Oscar. Nice win there. And Wetzel was able to get hand Guthro his first loss. But, short notice nature of the fight against a good fighter, I'm not really too worried about that one. So Guthro went back to the Ontario regionals after that one, picked up a 3rd round stoppage, and then fought most recently in May on CFFC. And in that fight, he was able to pick up a great win over Efren Escarino. And CFFC, man, is not an easy show to pick up wins on. So anytime you see somebody going over there and doing good work, that means something to me because I feel like that is a very good show. And, there's a reason that their alumni do so well in the UFC. If you go look at their alumni page, you're going to see a lot of guys that made it to the next level off CFFC. It's a really good show. So nice to see him go over there and get a win. Jimenez, on the other hand, started his pro career off in 2015, and he started off on Gladiator Challenge, went 1-1 in those 2 fights. Losing on Gladiator Challenge is not a great look, but that was a long time ago now. We'll give him a pass. Picks up a sub in his next fight, then makes his LFA debut at 2-1. Draws Vince Cachero, gets choked out in the 2nd round, so moves to 2-2. Cachero has had 2 UFC fights now, so not really a terrible loss at all, and then went on to win 6 straight since then, or should I say 5 straight. Not tremendous competition, but some solid wins in there. Beat Tristan Lindy in 2020. I think that's a pretty good win. But then the last win was Josh Hwan Kim being disqualified. Bit of an asterisk there once again. I just don't really see the need to make that a DQ. I mean, I feel like that's a no contest, if anything. If it's the first foul.
That was Frank Trigg reffing.
Yeah, it was Frank Trigg. I remember. I felt that it was unintentional. I felt it should have been a no contest, but it is what it is. And this one, I mean, I will say in that Josh Hwan Kim fight, Jimenez was doing a little better than I expected him to do, than I think probably most people did, especially considering the odds. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of that Josh Hwan Kim just did not have a very coherent or fluid game plan going in there. I mean, he was striking 1 minute, then he's grappling, then he's going for position, then all of a sudden he's rolling for a bunch of different submissions, giving up positions. It was kind of an awkward fight the whole way through. I feel like Guthro will have kind of a more succinct game plan in this one. I'm not super sold on Guthro, but I do think he's the more skilled fighter here. Am I lining up to bet him minus 275? No, I am not. But am I going to pick him to win? Yeah, I'm going to. I just think he's the better fighter, and I think he gets the job done here.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I've been at with this fight, is that with Guthro, he mildly, kind of impresses me everywhere. I feel like he should be a little better than he is in there, and maybe that doesn't really make sense, and that's unfair. With Arnold Jimenez, he took on Josh Hwan Kim, as you said. Josh Hwan Kim's going to be on the Contenders series. Arnold Jimenez is here. So it kind of tells you a little. That fight was definitely closer than I thought. I think this fight's going to be closer than people think. I just think this is going to be a competitive fight, or Guthro's going to just kind of wash him and just kind of dominate him with the, just his technical grappling, technical wrestling skills. I would like to see Guthro continue to kind of look in better physical condition. I think he kind of just still maybe just has one of these bodies where he doesn't look like he's in great shape in there. But, you see him kind of breathing heavy in these fights, and it just concerns me as he gets on to the higher level of opponents here. But I think he's got enough here. I think he's just technically much better, and that should be enough here. And Josh Hwan Kim, with a terrible game plan, still was winning that fight against Jimenez. But, I just think that was more, again, on the game plan. So I was tempted to think about Jimenez at a dog shot with Guthro being the second biggest favorite on the card because I don't think he should be. But I guess I'll go Guthro by decision. But I don't know. It just wouldn't surprise me if Jimenez turns this into kind of a dogfight and wears out Guthro a little bit. I do think Guthro's, cardio could potentially be exposed down the line. I just don't think Jimenez has the game for it. So, yeah, I hate the line, obviously. So I was a little more tempted. I was curious to hear what you thought. But, yeah, plus 180 on Jimenez. A little money has come in on Jimenez, plus minus 250 for Guthro. So I'll stay away from it, but I'm thinking about it. But here we go. Jaden Dinette said, yeah, T-Shay beats him. Trust he's better everywhere but wrestling. But even his wrestling's really good, he's going to beat up Arnold. Yeah, so, I mean, that's my concern is that, Arnold turns this into a dogfight, uses that wrestling a little bit, and exposes the cardio. That's my real concern. But move on to the next fight. It's a catchweight fight of a guy who I don't know if he's going to be in the LFA very long. I think this guy is legit, and I think he's got real good wrestling skills and just overall skills. Talking about Niagra Aliyev taking on Thiago Oliveira. Thiago Oliveira, 16-8, 6'1", 74-inch reach out. Gracie Barria, known as Sirigello. A little taller, more lengthy, normally a welterweight. 4 straight losses coming into this fight. Last 2 coming by knockout. Facing a good level of competition throughout these. Was in Bellator at one point against Joe Manley when he lost the decision. No room from back there. Overall, hasn't beat a crazy level of competition. He's lost to a pretty good level of competition as well. Mostly known for mostly a grappler. So I just think that, Derillo, just his wrestling is absolutely legit. Also usually a welterweight, so I think he's thinking about coming down to Tajikistan, which has some, very good fighters. He's gone to a decision most of his fights, using that wrestling, facing a good level of competition like Alexander Grebnev with AMC. So, yeah, overall, it's a U.S. debut for Niagra, so that's a concern or a question mark, you could say. But other than that, I just think Thiago Oliveira got questionable takedown defense against a very good wrestler. It's going to be rinse and repeat decision for Aliyev. I think Aliyev's legit, probably going to be on the Contenders series sooner rather than later.
Yeah, this should be a fun fight. I mean, I think they kind of threw this together short. Now, I don't even think we have odds in this fight, do we?
No, I don't think so, but I would assume Aliyev is going to be a significant favorite.
Well, I mean, listen, look at the 2 last letters of his name. He's going to be a favorite, right? But, Niagra Aliyev, man, Tajik fighter. He's been on the Russian regional scene pretty much his whole pro career so far, fighting with Fight Nights Global, Battle on Volga, a few other ones. He's off to a great start, 6-0, relatively strong level of competition as well for, this stage of his career. Not really much of a finisher. He's a very skilled fighter. Doesn't strike me as particularly dangerous, but I feel like, a lot of the times that skill gap is evident. Thiago Oliveira coming in with lots of experience, right? 24 pro fights. He's 16-8, but level of competition up until the last 4, pretty low. I mean, he was able to amass a record of 15-4 before he really started taking, a step up in competition. And then he fights a 12-6 John Manley on Bellator, like you mentioned, loses that one. And that started a 4-fight losing skid, which he is riding into this fight. And, he took the step up in competition and he's come up short 4 times in a row now, and was knocked out in the last 2 as well. So like I said, relatively strong opponents in the last 4 fights, but just not winning any of them. I think Aliyev is a pretty solid prospect. I think he gets the job done here. No odds, as we mentioned. I think he's probably going to be a moderate to heavy favorite. And I feel like he wins. And I feel like after this, he might be on to bigger and better. Maybe gets a look at Contender Series. Maybe we see him back in the LFA again for another one. Maybe title picture type fight. I'm not sure, but I do think that eventually we're going to see Aliyev kind of move on to the next level. Thiago Oliveira, not sure I feel the same about him. So, give me Niagra Aliyev here and what I expect to be a non-controversial pick.
Yep. Yeah, I think most people are going to be with that, and I do think it's going to be it could be the biggest. I think it will probably be the biggest favorite of the night, to be honest with you. If they do release the odds. Next fight, I believe this is the co-main event at flyweight. Tony Laramie versus Rodney Kealoha. Tony Laramie, also known as the better Laramie brother, in my opinion. So I think that should be noted. Coming into this, he's the flyweight as well, which is what every Laramie should be, because you just should be at the lowest weight class possible. These guys aren't big, but they're very technical, very good Canadians. Good experience for both of them. Rodney Kealoha, the Hawaiian, the captain, very exciting striker, gets in there and mixes it up. He's had a tough go of his last two. Another Jackson Wink representative here. Good kickboxer. Last two coming against very good level of competition. Mark Hilamako, who showed how good he was. I doubted him a few weeks ago. My mistake, Mark. You're legit. That was a very impressive one he had. Then Clayton Carpenter, who just got signed to the UFC. So, and Clayton Carpenter put him away in 13 seconds. I think we got robbed of what could have been a really exciting fight there. But then again, props to Clayton for the strike. It was right on there. So Kealoha hasn't fought since December. Took some time off after the knockout. A couple fights ago with LFA, knocked out Mefi Mataroso. A very, very impressive knockout there. Knocked him out quickly. And that was 3 straight knockouts before that on the regional scene, lower level of competition there. Was exposed a little bit with his grappling and has been. Tony Laramie, very, very good wrestler, good fundamental boxing, just a good fundamental fighter. 6-2 as a pro, good amateur experience as well, going 4-0 there. Mostly uses his grappling as well as comfortable with the boxing. Lost to Charles Jourdain's brother, who just was much, much bigger than him in that fight. And then he had an injury. Since then, he's won 4 straight. Claudio Ledesma, one of those guys who you kind of click on as you're a flyweight. If you beat him, you're good. If you lose to him, you might not be good. He did have a pretty impressive decision over him. And then the Tyus White fight last time out showed me a lot. Tyus White, I believe I think I picked going into that fight over Tony. I thought that the length of Tyus was going to give him a lot of trouble, the athleticism, and Tony just kind of kept a really good forward pace, kept a good, steady pace for 3 rounds, 1 decision. I think that we see a similar type of thing here, but I do think he gets a submission at some point on Rodney Kealoha. But I think Tony Laramie rolls here. Tony's good.
Yeah, man, Tony is good, and I do agree that he's the better of the Laramie brothers. Still got to prove it at the highest level, but I think that he's on his way to doing that. He's a good-looking prospect. He's 6-2. He's won 4 straight. Those losses came when he was very young. I think he was like 18 years old when he was having those fights. I mean, he's been a pro for most of his adult life, the very small amount that there's been so far. His last win came on LFA over an undefeated Tyus White, who, was a very big guy for flyweight, very good wrestler. And, Laramie kind of handled him, no problem. And he has a win over Claudio Ledesma before that. Like you mentioned, that's a very good litmus test for, up-and-coming flyweights. That was an impressive win. And that kind of had me high on him coming into that Tyus White fight. He also has a win over Keith Lee. Both of them were making their pro debuts on TKO. He beat Keith Lee.
I remember that fight. I watched it live.
Yeah.
I remember watching that live, bro.
Yeah, that was like 2018, 2017, maybe. It was a while ago now. It's hard to believe. Laramie's only 23. But he's developing very, very well. I liked what I saw from him a lot last time out. He's got a very, another good test here. And Rodney Kealoha, who is a very solid fighter. He's 5-3, coming in on 2 straight losses. But those losses are Mark Climaco and Clayton Carpenter. Clayton Carpenter's in the UFC. Got that contract 1 or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. How long is it going to be before we see Mark Climaco at the next level? I feel like we're probably going to see that soon in the next year or so as well, or at least see him get a chance. Kealoha also, is a very thick guy at flyweight, hits very hard. He's got good striking technique as well, puts on exciting fights.
Yes.
I think this is another good test for Laramie. I mean, Kealoha is definitely better than that 5-3 record would suggest, but I think this is another one for Kealoha where he's got an opponent who's just a little bit more advanced, who's just a little bit closer to that next level. So I got to go with Tony Laramie to get the win here. I think it should be an exciting fight. And I think if he wins this one, it's time to start giving him a look for, maybe giving him a chance to break into that next level. But I would like to see maybe him get a title fight at flyweight in the LFA for his next one, maybe before that, just because he is still pretty young.
Yeah. Minus 300 right now for Laramie, a little too steep for me. Plus 210 on Kealoha. This is just either this fight or the next fight for Kealoha. He's going to spark somebody with, them seeing 2 or 3 straight losses and not taking into account enough that it's all current UFC or future UFC talent that he's losing to. So, like, again, Laramie is going to be in the UFC. Kilmako is going to be in the UFC. I was wrong about Kilmako the last time out. I doubted him way too much in that fight. And, I mean, again, so it should be a good one. I just think, Laramie really showed a lot in that last fight, but we'll see how good Tyus White really was and everything like that. Tyus White hadn't been really tested before Laramie coming into that fight. So, again, you look good against your level of competition. On to the main event here. This is like probably the fight I'm like not least excited about, but was like most confused about, I guess. Like it being like a main event. I guess they needed something to be. Adam Assenza, veteran of the sport. I've kind of seen him here or there. He's never really jumped off the page to me or been someone I thought would get signed to the LFA and be in a main event spot, but here we are. And then Junior Mello, before his last fight, was not someone who really jumped off the page to me or like was like someone I thought should even be signed to the LFA, let alone after one fight would be in a main event. But he had a great performance coming in. I'll give him credit for that. And here we are, Junior Mello out of Brazil, Adam Ascenza out of Canada. Here in this fight, again, is at 155. First up is the Fortaleza kid, Junior Mello. Looks nothing like his picture, I'll say that much. He's now bald, but 11-5, coming off the win out of the Pitbull brothers. Knocked out our boy. Knocked out our sweet, sweet summer child, Tommy Aaron, bad. He came in there and just, he spoiled the party, I'll be honest. Looked really good. Known mostly for his striking lately, but he is kind of known for his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Jiu-Jitsu guy who's like really formed into his striking here. Didn't look all that physically impressive, but those shots that he was landing were affecting Tommy early and often. And he's kind of just like a Warley Alves type of Brazilian where it's just like you look at him, you're like, he looks okay. But he's just got pretty impressive skills apparently. It was a minute 30, so we didn't learn that much. But, prior to that, hadn't faced a great level of competition. Guido Santos before that beat him in a decision. So he was losing a decision coming into that fight against Tommy Aaron. And then before that, just not a great level of competition overall. So in the few fighters who were decent, he lost to either by split or got submitted in one of them. So just a lot of unknowns. But what I saw of Mello in that last fight was very, very confident guy. He threw just a variety of strikes. His accuracy was good, and the power, I think, surprised Tommy Aaron. I think definitely surprised me. He didn't look like he put a lot into the shots, and they were just landing really well. So I have a hard time reading Junior Mello so far. Adam Ascenza, Maverick, I've seen quite a bit of him coming off a win by knockout against the wrestler Dominic Clark, who has been on Bellator elsewhere. It's a decent win. Definitely has faced a much better level of competition overall. I mean, a split with Cody Pfister back in 2020 isn't something you love to see at all. Mostly goes to a decision, but does have a few knockouts on his record as well. Losses to guys like Tristan Connolly, Jason Sago back in the day. Ascenza's faced a very level of competition. I just don't know what a win here does for him. Like a lot of these guys we've said are like moving on to the next level. A win here, I think a win keeps Ascenza in the LFA, and a win for Mello, I think, kind of really does help him much more. In a fight like this, I think it could be very close. I'm just going to take the unknown potential and the upside of Mello just to take this one. I think he's going to be a little bit bigger than Adam as well, but we'll see. At least taller than Adam. Adam's not the tallest of lightweights there at 5'7", and Mello seems to be pretty strong, has a good jiu-jitsu game we didn't get to really see in the last one. The stand-up seems to be there, so I'll take the unknown potential of Mello, but I don't know. What do you think about this fight?
Yeah, we're seeing this one pretty similarly on a lot of levels, in that I was a little bit confused to see this as the main event. And I mean, I guess it makes sense given that I think these are the two most experienced guys in the card. Definitely Ascenza. Tiago.
Tiago, whatever. Oliveira.
Yeah, he's got 24 fights.
Right.
So never mind. But other than that, I think
like debutantes.
The highest experienced two combined fighters in the cards, and
Right.
they have a bunch of fights. And Ascenza was a B2 fighting series lightweight champ. He was the lightweight champ in BTC. He won that belt. He lost it. It's been all around. He's 16-6. He's got a ton of experience. He's on a 6-fight win streak. 34 years old and kind of an OG of the Canadian MMA landscape. He's been in the game for a long time. He's got fights way back in the day on like Score Fighting Series, which, needless to say, is not around anymore.
Rest in peace, Score.
Yeah, beat Dominic Clark in his last fight. And, this is a guy we've seen on Bellator, LFA, so pretty decent win there. Lost to Tristan Connolly in 2016, who went on to compete in the UFC, obviously. Coming up against Junior Mello, who is 11-5. He's 5-1 in his last 6, though, which I like. And he's still young. He's still 26 years old. Really starting to hit his stride, get some nice momentum. 2 fights ago, we lost to Guido Santos in Future FC, and he's coming off a round 1 knockout over Tommy Aaron. Very nice win. I definitely did not see that one coming. And he's got 5 finishes, right, in those 5 wins. So he's doing well. He's wins mostly over lower level guys, but Tommy Aaron was a step up. He passed the test. And to kind of speak to your point about, the physique, I noticed in that fight as well. I thought he was looking a little smaller, not really super defined. I kind of had forgot that he took that fight at welterweight. He's back at 155 here, and I think he's a pretty big lightweight. So I think we're going to kind of see a little bit of a different physique here. We'll have to see what he looks like at the weigh-ins, but I think that he's going to look a little bit better here back at his natural 155. Working with the Pitbull brothers, very good gym, and just a very dangerous guy that's finishing people. Younger, 26, training at a great camp. Good momentum coming in here. And, kind of to speak to a point that you brought up earlier, I mean, I don't really see what this really does for Ascenza at this point. I mean, he's 16-6, he's 34. I don't know if, the UFC or Bellator or anything like that is really on the cards for him, but he is a good fighter in this spot. But I'm going to side with you. I think I'm going to go with kind of that unknown, younger guy, good momentum coming in here, could create a big moment. I think I'm going to go with Junior Mello to I don't know if I'm going to bet it, but I'm going to lean to the dog in the main event here.
Yeah. Right now, I would say of the fights on this card, I'm really heavily thinking about. I'm definitely would consider maybe a cross promotion parlay with Tony Laramie and Charlevoix in there as my 2 pieces from here. But my single bets would be 2 slight underdogs, Budka and Melo would be my consideration. Budka, I'm much less on, especially after kind of talking and thinking more through it. I think I'm okay with just sitting that one out. But I think I'm going to catch Mello at plus money here. I think the unknown potential and just the fact that was at 170 is a really good point. I think that could have to do with why his physique wasn't all that great and him to affect kind of a welterweight that strongly too. Leads me a little more confident. So plus 110 right now in Mello. We'll see. I think maybe it stays there. Maybe it gets slightly closer, minus 140. 5 for Ascenza. Really quickly, I'm going to go through the PFL picks. Lucky Locks obviously has done minimal tape on PFL at this point. I kind of mentioned this right before. This is my video for PFL because this is as much time as I'm putting in. I did tape last night after the Contender Series, but for the most part, I'll say if anything really sticks out to me, but we'll just really quickly, and I do mean quickly, go through these picks. And again, Lucky Locks only doing this because I asked him to. He's, so I appreciate him being a good sport here. But PFL, quick picks because that's what I feel this season in PFL deserves at this point. They've worn me down. I can't trust the judging, can't trust the fighters, all the way above. But I am excited about the prelims and postlims on this card, actually more than probably the main fight. So starting at 155, really good fight between Omar Hussein, good grappler, longer guy. Reminds me a lot of Assenza, actually, in some ways. Alexander Chisinov, very good Latvian fighter, good stand-up, decent wrestling as well. I think this is going to be a really good fight. I think Alexander struggles with grinders. Hussein might try to pull that off, but I don't think he does, so I will take Chisinov here. Do you have any thoughts on this fight or no? No. All good. I saw the shake of the head. All good. Yeah, no, we'll move on. I do like Chisinov quite slightly in this spot, and I do believe they have the odds up, and they do. That's good. Not with not with all of the fights yet, and this fight is not odds yet, of course. Next fight, Stuart Austin versus Sofiane Bokicho, the French fighter. Sofiane has a ton of fights on Fight Pass, so you can go and watch a lot of those, including him getting injured very quickly against Tom Aspinall. I just have a simple rule. When Stuart Austin's in a fight, I'm going to pick the other guy if he's at all competent. Sofiane is competent. I think he gets him down with the wrestling and submits him, honestly. So Stuart Austin, just fade away. Just if you have any that you want to pop in on, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll just keep going here.
Yeah, these ones, I mean, once we get on to kind of the main card, we'll probably give
this is no reflection on Lucky Locks at all. I literally told him right before this, I'm tagging on the PFL fights here. So again, next fight though is going to be very exciting, and it is on the main card. 205, Simone Powell out of England. Had a little bit of a struggle in his couple fights with the PFL Challenger Series, but he has been able to finish him. Very hyped guy against João Paulo Fagundes. João Paulo comes and throws down, but he gets dropped a lot in his fights as well. He survived them, but I don't think he's going to survive the power of Simone Powell. So I do think Simone Powell takes this, but João is down. He's a down Brazilian. But in his last fight, you can go back and watch. It's pretty funny. He gets dropped pretty hard in that fight and almost is out of there before switching the tide. So definitely going to be an entertaining fight. But Simone Powell I like there. Dakota Dacheva versus Hasnan Gabner, the women's flyweight debut in PFL, because the women's flyweight division is so deep that let's just further dilute it. But honestly, Dakota Dacheva is a legit prospect. She's got really good clinch control, really good striking, puts away most of her opponents, and I think that's the same to Hasna here, the Egyptian grappler. So, but Dakota's going to be one to watch. I'm excited to see her. Hyoji Kudo versus Bubba Jenkins. You got to have a thought on this fight. I think this is actually one of the fights that I'm thinking about a dog if I were to bet PFL a little more haphazardly, but I'm not quite there yet. But I do think Kudo, if the takedown defense is there, I think he's going to put Jenkins in a lot of trouble. His striking is really impressive, very physical guy as well. So I'll take Kudo as my pick here to edge out a decision.
Yeah, I mean, Jenkins is a fighter that is always priced like a pretty big favorite and very rarely covers the price, in my opinion. And we kind of have that again. It's another fight where I feel like it's way too much chalk, but I also do think he probably wins at least 2 out of the 3 rounds here. But
minus 435.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, I'm not going anywhere near that, but I do think I'll probably lean towards him to win. But I mean, like I said, this is a guy where if he can't really get even sometimes if he does get the wrestling going, he just gets tired towards the end of the fight. And I mean, how many times have we seen him?
Very physical too.
Yeah, how many times have we seen Bubba Jenkins, looking tired, looking a little slow in the 3rd round? So I couldn't blame anybody for taking a big price tag on Kudo there.
Yeah. Plus 300 on Kudo. And the thing I like about Kudo in his fights with PFL is each fight he's shown like a different facet of like, oh, interesting. I didn't know this was there. He by no means has had an easy run. And Jenkins hasn't really impressed me this season either. So, yeah, I mean, plus 300 is tempting. So they might wrangle me into 1 or 2 bets here. That could be one. Next, I think a very good 155 fight for the 155 division. Larissa Pacheco versus Alina Kolinsnik. Alina's looked good in her last couple. I really like her volume and her, kind of her takedown defense and everything. She sells a fight very good at the end of it to really sell for the judges if it's close, if it's sweaty. I can really see it. I get Pacheco's looked like a tank, though. So I will go with Pacheco, but, Alina stealing some sort of decision, I think wouldn't really shock me. Again, this price tag, I'm not even considering ever betting this.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think Pacheco's gonna wax her, similar to last time. But I will say, before she knocked her out brutally, which was a absolutely brutal knockout.
That was a bad knockout.
Kolesnik looked a little bit better than I thought. I'm pretty sure I had some kind of maybe I had Pacheco knockout or something. I don't know. And I was like, oh, geez, this is a little closer than I thought right off the bat. But obviously it didn't last very long. No. And it was a really good knockout. I think she's probably going to do a similar thing here. But I agree, Kolesnik from her first PFL appearance has looked much better the last couple times, but I still think it's going to be way too much against Larissa Pacheco here.
Right, you're gonna get like a Pacheco, like what, a KO at like minus 400 or something.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Maybe if you can get like first round knockout, but I don't know. I don't know why would you really want to bet this.
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself through that. So Pacheco should roll again there. Chris Wade versus Brendan Loughnane. I just think these guys are going to fight super close all the time, but Chris Wade is just, he's on a mission, man, and I do think he, made the right decision to leave PFL. I think we're going to be saying a similar thing about Shane Burgos next year. I just think Chris Wade knows what his game plan is to win and does it here. And I don't mind the price at minus 250.
Yeah, I more or less agree. I don't love the price tag on Chris Wade. I mean, that opener minus 150, I think that's definitely fair, and I think that's pretty playable. Now, I'm not super interested because, it probably is going to be a close fight. I mean, I can definitely see Brendan Loughnane taking a round. Loughnane is a guy that I like too. But, yeah, I mean, Chris Wade just relentless. He's a dog, and he's going to bring that wrestling nonstop, and, he's a pretty decent striker as well. So I feel like I got to edge towards Chris Wade. I'm not super interested in betting.
Kayla Harrison by sub or KO for you?
I'm gonna say submission.
Okay, submission.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'll say submission as well. That she faces Martina Genderova this time. Next fight is another one that's interesting. Zebzui Ruiz, who's been very fun to watch for me on tape, taking on Rafael Uchegbu. Rafael's faced like horrible level of competition so far. He's very long, lengthy, looks very athletic for 135. Ruiz usually is at 145 and looks thick there. I anticipate Ruiz misses weight and then probably wins by using his wrestling and just staying on top of Uchegbu. But I have trouble seeing Ruiz make it back down to bantamweight. He has fought bantamweight before, but last fight he looked thicker than a Snickers, honestly. But Ruiz looks like a beast, and I just think that he's going to be able to overpower Uchegbu here. So Uchegbu hasn't blown me away with what I've seen. Next fight, another guy who hasn't blown me away, Darius Mafi, facing very low levels of competition and not looking that crazy good against them. He's going against a very, very good Swedish fighter, Ali Taleb, who's just a much better level of competition over his last few. Very powerful for the division. I think he knocks out Mafi here. Magnus Iverson versus Tayu Odunju. This is another fight. Both guys are really physical. You don't want to get involved with this. Tayu has a lot of hype coming into this. We don't know exactly what Magnus is to offer. Good 170 fight. Louis Sutherland versus Abraham Bavli. That's another fight. I couldn't find anything on Bavli. He's 1-0 going against a 4-0 fighter. Sit back and watch. And then Marcin Held is a minus 1,000 favorite against Miles Price. Anything there for you? Any thoughts there?
I mean, other than the fact that who would ever lay minus 1,000 on Marcin Held? Not much. I mean, do I think he's going to win? Yeah, sure. Do I want to bet him at minus 1,000? Absolutely not. I don't think
Held's going to go to decision in this one.
Yeah, I'm not very high on Miles Price. I mean, I'm not all that high on Marcin Held, but I'm high enough that, I'd obviously pick him to win. But minus 1,000 is, it's surprising. I mean, I knew he would be a big favorite, but I thought like minus 1,000 is just surprising, to be honest.
It's just crazy when they make it to a price where you think about, do I put a small sprinkle on Miles Price in case something does that? But I can't do it. Miles Price is the last one of Anthony Pettis' career. Probably going to be the last one of Anthony Pettis' career too.
Yeah, probably.
Like with it, 2 broken hands, Pettis. So yeah, that's going to do it. I get it that the PFL, that was a very layman's PFL coverage. I would not suggest you follow any of it, but if you want a little bit of a lean, that's where I'm leaning based on the tape I'm going to watch on the PFL. But that's going to do it for the breakdown. The LFA picks are definitely good reads there, ready to move on from a Nightmare Contender Series for me. Lucky Locks did hit his one bet on the night with Nazim, so shout out to him. But, these things happen. It's a variance of the game. I'm going to have some great nights, and that Contender Series was no doubt my worst Contender Series yet. Can't do worse than 0 for 5. Not going to hide from it, and I always stand behind my picks. But should be a good weekend. excited to see if Leon Edwards can maybe shock the world a little bit. I see a lot of people seemingly on him against Kamaru. I'm still on Kamaru as of now. But should be a good weekend of fights. We got LFA, we got PFL, we got KSW. We got Fury on Sunday that I might be putting a video out for if I can put together enough tape. It's a really good Fury. So good weekend of MMA. Lucky Locks, appreciate you always making the time, man. Glad that for the most part we agree on our fights for LFA. Always feels good. I think we were 6 or 7 on agreements for this.
Yeah, I think just the first one was the only one we were on.
Budka and Poag, which you kind of backed me off Budka. So 6 or 7 agreements that typically leads to money. So go ahead and follow as you may, but always use your own minds when making your picks. Appreciate it, everybody. Keep taking care of each other out there, and go check out Lucky Locks picks video. Is it out yet?
It is not out yet. I gotta get on that right after.
Right on. But it's always, as I said, broken record, but it's an excellent video to listen to as you're making your final final analysis, and it has less of my personality, my anecdotes added in there. But Sarah and the dog get it with here. But until next time, take care of each other out there and enjoy your weekends, people. Peace.